Da Bears have signed Kevin Byard, safety, to a 2-year, $15 million deal. Kevin Byard will replace Eddie Jackson at one of the safety positions for Chicago in 2024, teaming up in the secondary with a bunch of youthful playmakers. Jaquan Brisker at the other safety spot inside Matt Eberflus's defense. It's a 2-year, $15 million deal for the 2-time All-Pro, the 2-time Pro Bowler, a longtime Tennessee Titan, and most recently a Philadelphia Eagle. Kevin Byard is looking for a big bounce back with the Chicago Bears in 2024 after slipping just a little bit with the Philadelphia Eagles. I was raving about the trade for the Eagles last season at the trade deadline to get Kevin Byard from the Titans because I'm a big Kevin Byard fan. And I believe he's going to do Chicago very well. I think he is going to perform in Chicago for a multitude of reasons. First of all, I like Chicago's defense. I think Chicago has a youthful and up-and-coming defense. I don't think they're anywhere near done in terms of the moves they will make this offseason for Matt Eberflus's defense. I think they're going to add pass rushers. I think that they could potentially add depth to the interior defensive line. But Kevin Byard definitely makes it clear for the vision of the secondary. Now you add a safety that, in my mind, is one of the most high IQ players at any position in football. This is a safety that can play all positions. In the box, free safety. He's never really played nickel corner, but he can play in any structure, 2 high, single high. And I do believe he's not the same athlete that he once was. So potentially playing him in a more limited capacity could be better off for him. Brisker has primarily been an in-box safety. He's a great tackler, great roamer of the field, and very high in terms of instincts. And I see Kevin Byard in a similar fashion in terms of instincts. So I can see what Chicago sees in Kevin Byard. He's a very high instincts player. He sees the ball, he gets the ball. He's known for interceptions. Right, you look at his career, and he's led the NFL in interceptions in his second season with 8 picks. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons with 4 or more interceptions in his career. He has ball production. He gets his hands on that football. And he is very, very good at reading the eyes of the quarterback and jumping routes. What I do believe Byard is going to bring this team, more importantly than even his play or his physical tools, is a little bit of mentorship towards this youthful secondary in Chicago. You're talking about a bunch of young players. Jalen Johnson is like the oldest, I guess, in the group of starters, and Jalen Johnson isn't that old. So you're talking about Gordon and Brisker and Stevenson and a lot of potential there. But having a guy like Byard would be huge and is going to be huge. The ability to get in the film room and study with a mind like that, who's been around the NFL, who's played the best quarterbacks in the game, who's been to the playoffs, deep in the playoffs, who's played Tom Brady, who's played Patrick Mahomes, who's played all the greats of this era, who's been tutored by Mike Vrabel, right? Like, this is a guy that high IQ is going to be able to help these young corners and safeties develop in a way that I have often brought up with Stephon Gilmore, but this is a big thing in the secondary. Like, just knowing the little tricks to the trade and the craft of being a player in the secondary and studying route combinations and concepts of offenses and understanding what you can get away with. That is a big deal. And Kevin Byard is going to bring back, I feel, for Bears fans, Peanut Tillman vibes in that area in terms of playmaking, intelligence, and in terms of that leadership that a team like Chicago will need on their defense. Or we're talking about a defense that, again, is pretty young, especially in the secondary, and having a guy that can communicate and signal the schemes, the audibles, the checks, the balances of this defense for Eberflus, I think is going to be extremely impactful. No, he might not move the same way. He might not be as physical as he once was. He might not be an all-pro anymore, but he's still a good player. I thought he was still playing very well in 2022. I thought he was a really good player. Obviously, in 2021, might have been his best season of his career. You could have argued he was the best safety in the NFL. So it wasn't that long ago. This guy was at an elite level. So maybe some of it was the secondary around him in Tennessee. Not a lot of great corners. Not a lot of great safeties supporting him. Maybe part of it has been the inability to find his sweet spot in Philadelphia. Maybe it just wasn't a great fit there. And obviously that defense had a lot of issues, especially coaching-wise. So in Chicago now, elevated coaching, elevated support, more athletes, speed around you, so less exposure to you, makes a lot of sense. So if you're a team like Chicago, I believe could be on the big time rise this season. Like, I'm expecting big moves. I think Caleb Williams will be your quarterback. I think you could make some moves on the offensive line, especially at center. I think they could make moves at receiver. I think they could make moves at running back. I think they could make moves on defense. They're far from done. This is just the first of many moves to come. And I view Chicago as a team that this is the type of move that signals, hey man, we're ready. We're ready to play ball. We're ready to go for it. That is what I think Chicago fans should be really invested in and really excited for, is the fact that not only is this an interesting move, an intriguing move, and it could potentially pay off big time, 2-year, $15 million, who cares? That's not much for a player that can play as well as Kevin Byard at times. So it also signals their intent. Their intent on winning now. Their intent in going for it, which I think is the right strategy to try to go all in with the first overall pick, get a quarterback, and spend some dough and go for it. This division's difficult, but hey man, it's now or it's never. So this team still needs some help on the D-line, but looking at this secondary, I like it. I like it a lot. So I'm intrigued. Kevin Byard, last season, played 16 games. On Pro Football Reference, it states that he had 122 tackles. I don't know if that's correct or not. That would be the most of his career last year. He only had one pick, unfortunately. So that's not uncommon for him, though. He only had one pick in 2020. Actually, his stats in 2023 and 2020 are very reminiscent. And he was a very good player in 2020. He had 111 tackles and only one pick in 16 games in 2020. Had 122 tackles and one pick in 2023. I did not see any sort of coaching connection that made this signing significant in any way or made me understand it in any way. But the only thing I know is that they needed a safety. They let go of Eddie Jackson. They got another veteran safety that plays a similar position, that has a similar skill set for potentially cheaper and potentially better. Potentially. So, we will see. Last year, according to PFF, Kevin Byard ranked as... They already list him, I think, maybe as Chicago. Let's see. Wow, good job, PFF. 23rd in the NFL. That's actually higher than I thought he would be. 23rd in the NFL at safety. A 72.8 grade. An 83.6 run defense grade, which is really, really good. That's in the top 10. And a 68 coverage grade, which isn't bad. He also played a ton of snaps still at his age, at 30 now. He played the fourth most snaps in the NFL last season. So the continuing this research here as I'm discussing this player, I mean, yeah, he dropped off a little bit because that was expected. I mean, you look at his career, he's been absolutely phenomenal, especially when you look at Pro Football Focus. I mean, 2017, 10th best safety. 2018, 4th best safety. 2019, 10th best safety. 2021, best safety in the NFL. 2022, 8th best safety in the NFL. According to PFF, these are outrageous numbers, by the way. And then, the only real numbers that kind of are reminiscent, again, 2020, he had the 40th ranking, and 2023, 23rd. Those are his lowest rankings of his career, and it's, I think, very similar in terms of what we saw in terms of stats. So I think that's interesting. Last year, he played most of his snaps at free safety, 551. I think he'll be mostly a free safety in Chicago, so that makes sense. He did play 234 snaps in the slot and 378 in the box. So he has versatility. As I've stated, he's played strong safety, free safety, depending on who his partner has been, depending on the strengths and weaknesses of the defense and things like that and the coverage systems that they play. He can do both. He can rotate in the box. He can play deep. He can play two high, single high. Doesn't really matter. I do think he's better in zone than a man system or a heavy in terms of, match system where you're having to basically cover guys in man coverage. I think he's better mostly in zone coverages because he can read and react to the ball, and that's what he's really good at. But still really effective in run defense, which I think is a signal that he's not that old yet, right? 30 years old. If you're still competitive in run defense, you're still tackling people well, that's a signal that you can still play, in my opinion. So that's it, guys. My thoughts on Kevin Byard. Love the player. Always have. He's a playmaker. He's going to bring a mentor, older veteran to the Chicago secondary that I think is really going to pay off for the Bears. Thanks for watching. Gronk, spike the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe for more NFL reactions just like this, all free agency long. Peace, guys.